The warning light blinked red on the console, and Vexter-S antenna twitched with irritation. Another false reading, probably. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had been picking up glitches for weeks now, ever since the solar storm passed through Sector 7G. The mantis-like alien reached forward with one of his forearms and prepared to clear the error. Message. Then he saw the numbers. His breath caught in his throat, or rather, his breathing spiracles closed in shock. The energy signatures coming from the third planet in that unremarkable yellow star system were impossible. Electromagnetic radiation in patterns that suggested artificial transmission. Radio waves carrying structured information. Nuclear fission residue in the atmosphere. And most disturbing of all, traces of unshielded fusion reactions being used for propulsion. Vexter checked the sensors 3 times. Each time, the same impossible data appeared on his screens. "Commander Exhara," he called out, his voice clicking with nervousness. "You need to see this." Commander Exhara moved across the station floor with the smooth grace of her species. The Velfani female had 4 arms and silver skin that reflected the station's blue lighting. She'd fought in the border conflicts 200 cycles ago and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had seen everything the galaxy could offer. She looked at Vexter's screen and her 4 eyes widened. "That cannot be correct," she said flatly. "I have verified it 17 times, Commander. The readings are consistent." Ixhara stared at the data. In 40,000 years of galactic history, every species that joined the Confederation had followed the same basic pattern of development. First came psionic awakening, when a species learned to touch minds across distances. Then came understanding of anti-gravity, allowing them to escape their home worlds gently. Then plasma containment, then quantum harmonization, then finally faster-than-light travel. This species had skipped every single step. They were using controlled explosions to reach space. They were burning ancient organic matter to power their cities. They had somehow survived their own nuclear weapons. And according to the scans, they were still alive down there, still building, still growing. "Send a probe," Ixhara ordered. "I want visual confirmation. The Council will never believe this without proof." The probe took 6 days to reach the system. When its first images came back, the entire monitoring station gathered around the main display. The planet called Earth hung in space, blue and green and wrapped in white clouds. Cities covered its surface, glowing with artificial light. Satellites orbited overhead, primitive things held together with welded metal and chemical propulsion. Ships moved through the darkness of space, carrying what the probe's translator identified as humans. The images showed the humans themselves. They walked on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and soft skin with no natural armor. Their bodies were fragile things that would break easily. Yet these same fragile creatures had built machines that could leave their planet. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had covered their world with roads and buildings and farms. How are they alive? Vexter whispered. Their technology should have killed them centuries ago. Ixhara studied the images with her tactical mind. The humans had no telepathic abilities. The probe detected no psionic fields at all. They had no energy shields protecting their vessels. They were breathing an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that would be toxic to most species in the Confederation. Their gravity was unusually high. Their temperature variations were extreme. Every aspect of their existence seemed designed to kill them. Yet they thrived. "Send this to the Council," Ixhara said quietly. "They need to know about this immediately." The Galactic Confederation Council convened 3 days later in the Great Chamber on the core world of Harmonia. Representatives from 200 species gathered, their various forms filling the vast space. Some floated, some walked, some existed as pure energy. They all shared one thing in common. They had all followed the standard path of evolution. They had all achieved civilization through telepathy, harmony, and peaceful understanding. Science Director Pelmara addressed the assembly. The gaseous being's form shifted colors as it spoke, translating its thoughts into words that all species could understand. The probe data has been verified by 12 independent science teams, Pelmara announced. There's no error. There is no equipment malfunction. Sector 7G, previously classified as lifeless, contains a thriving industrial civilization that has achieved spaceflight through methods we considered impossible. Holographic images of Earth filled the chamber. The assembled representatives made sounds of disbelief in 200 different languages. They call themselves humans, Pelmara continued. Their world is Earth. They have no psionic abilities whatsoever. They use chemical combustion for energy. They have survived their own nuclear warfare. They reach space using controlled explosions. Every aspect of their development violates the fundamental laws of civilized evolution. A representative from the Krylaxian collective stood up, its crystalline body chiming with agitation. This must be a mistake. No species can achieve spaceflight without mastering anti-gravity first. The energy requirements alone would destroy any planet. And yet, Pelmara replied calmly, they have done exactly that. Another representative spoke up, this one from the ancient Luminar collective. Perhaps they are not intelligent at all. Perhaps these are simply animals using tools, acting on instinct. Pelmara displayed more images. Human libraries filled with books. Human laboratories where they studied science. Human schools where they taught their young. Human art and music and literature. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were intelligent. They were creative. They were curious. They were everything a sentient species should be. They were just insane by every galactic standard. What do we do? Asked a young diplomat from the Volthani worlds. Do we contact them? Do we observe from a distance? Do we warn them of the dangers of their own technology? Commander Ixhara stepped forward. She had been asked to attend the council meeting as the officer who first confirmed the discovery. I recommend immediate contact, she said. If we delay, they will continue developing their dangerous technology. They might destroy themselves. Or worse, they might discover faster than light travel on their own terms, with no guidance from us. The council chamber filled with debate. Some argued for immediate intervention. Others wanted to observe for several more cycles. A few suggested that humanity should be left alone entirely, quarantined from the rest of the galaxy for everyone's safety. Finally, the council elder spoke. The ancient being had witnessed the rise and fall of a dozen civilizations. Its voice carried the weight of countless years of wisdom. We will make contact, the elder announced. But, carefully. If this species has survived their own dangerous technology, they may be dangerous themselves. We will send the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Truth. We will offer them a place in the Confederation. And we will learn what we can from these humans. The vote was unanimous. The motion passed. Far away, on the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, humanity continued their daily lives, unaware that they had just shaken the foundations of galactic civilization simply by existing. The discovery of humanity had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same again. The diplomatic vessel Harmony's Truth dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon, exactly as planned. Captain Renzik, a tall being with blue skin and 3 fingers on each hand, stood on the bridge and watched the small blue planet on the main screen. He had conducted first contact with 14 different species during his long career. He knew exactly what to do. Begin standard protocols, he ordered. Telepathic greeting on all frequencies. Mathematical constant transmission on radio bands. And display the peace symbol. The ship's telepathic array activated, sending out waves of greeting and peaceful intentions. The radio transmitters began broadcasting prime numbers and simple mathematical equations, the universal language of intelligence. The ship's hull displayed the Confederation peace symbol, a complex pattern that all civilized species recognized. On Earth, alarms started ringing immediately. At the North American Aerospace Defense Command, deep inside a mountain, screens suddenly lit up with warnings. A massive object had appeared near the moon. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was not responding to any known identification protocols, and it was broadcasting strange radio signals. "Get me the president," the duty officer shouted. "Get me the Earth Defense Coalition. Get me everyone. We have contact." Around the world, military bases went to full alert. Missile systems powered up. Fighter jets scrambled into the air. Warships that had been built for defense against an unknown enemy suddenly had a target. The entire planet mobilized in less than 30 minutes. On the Harmony's Truth, Captain Renzik watched in growing confusion as the humans responded to first contact. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they are aiming weapons at us." "Weapons? Already?" Renzik was shocked. "We are displaying the peace symbol. We are broadcasting mathematical constants. Did they not receive our telepathic greeting?" "Sir, I am detecting no telepathic response at all. Their minds are silent." Renzik felt a chill run through his body. Silent minds? That was impossible. Every intelligent species in the galaxy had at least basic telepathic abilities. It was how evolution worked. Social creatures needed to share thoughts to become truly civilized. "Try radio communication," he ordered. "Perhaps they are still in the early stages of psionic development." The communication officer sent out a message in multiple Earth languages. "Greetings from the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace. Please respond." The response came within seconds, but not from the planet. A large human vessel was approaching from Earth's orbit, moving fast on chemical rockets that left glowing trails behind it. Renzik recognized the design from the probe data. This was a warship. "This is Commander Dayan Park of the Earth Defense Coalition flagship Indomitable," a voice said over the radio. "Identify yourself and state your purpose immediately." The voice was firm, controlled, and carried no fear at all. Renzik had expected awe, wonder, perhaps even worship. Instead, he was being given orders. "I am Captain Renzik of the Confederation vessel Harmony's Truth," he replied carefully. "We have come to welcome Earth to the galactic community. We mean you no harm. Maintain your current position," Commander Park responded. "We are sending a delegation. Any movement toward Earth will be considered a hostile act." Renzik looked at his crew in disbelief. The humans were threatening him. They were treating first contact like a military encounter. This had never happened before. "Commander Park," Renzik said patiently, "we can transport your delegation directly to our vessel using matter-stream technology. It is perfectly safe and will take only seconds." There was a pause. Then a different voice came over the radio, female and precise. "This is Dr. Yuna Choi, Earth's chief xenobiologist. We appreciate the offer, but we will travel in our own vessel. We do not yet understand your technology well enough to trust it with human lives." "But that will take hours," Renzik protested. "Then you will wait hours," Dr. Choi replied simply. The Harmony's Truth crew watched as the human ship Pioneer launched from Earth orbit. It was a crude thing, barely more advanced than the first Confederation species' initial space vessels from 40,000 years ago. The hull was thick metal. The propulsion was chemical rockets. The life support systems were so primitive that the humans inside had to wear protective suits in case something failed. Yet the ship moved with purpose and confidence. The humans knew their vessel was inferior. They did not care. They were coming on their own terms, or not at all. 6 hours later, the Pioneer docked with the Harmony's Truth. The airlock cycled open, and the first humans stepped aboard an alien vessel. Commander Daehyun Park entered first. He was a tall man with short dark hair and sharp eyes that immediately scanned the room, noting exits, potential weapons, defensive positions. His hand stayed near the sidearm on his belt. Behind him came Dr. Yuna Choi, carrying several devices for collecting data. Then came Ambassador Jin Woo-han, an older man with gray hair who moved with diplomatic grace. Finally, Tactical Officer Han Kwan, a young woman who positioned herself to cover the group's flank. Captain Renzik stepped forward with all his appendages, spread in the universal gesture of peace. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Truth. I am Captain. You can read our minds, can't you?" Dr. Choi interrupted, her scanning device pointed at Renzik. The captain paused. We attempted telepathic contact, yes. It is standard protocol, but we received no response. That's because we don't have telepathy, Dr. Choi said matter-of-factly. Our species does not possess psionic abilities. We communicate through language, written symbols, and electronic media. The confession sent shockwaves through the Confederation crew. No telepathy at all? Not even latent abilities? How did humans coordinate? How did they understand each other's intentions? How did they build trust without being able to touch each other's minds? That seems difficult, Renzik said carefully. We've managed, Ambassador Han replied with a slight smile. Captain, we appreciate this contact. We have many questions. I assume you have questions as well. Perhaps we should begin with basic information exchange? The meeting lasted 8 hours. The humans asked about the Confederation structure, its laws, its member species, its technology, and its military capabilities. They took detailed notes on everything. They recorded every conversation. They scanned every device they were allowed to examine. The Confederation representatives asked about Earth's history, its culture, and its development. What they learned disturbed them deeply. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had dozens of words for different types of conflict. They had developed weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. They had suffered through diseases, famines, and natural disasters that would have destroyed most species. They had survived all of it through sheer stubbornness and adaptability. You have no telepathy, Science Officer Thurvan said slowly, which means you cannot truly understand each other. You have been at war with yourselves for millennia. Your planet's environment is actively hostile to complex life. Yet you have reached space. How? Commander Park leaned back in his chair. We don't give up, he said simply. When something tries to kill us, we learn from it and we get stronger. When we face a problem we cannot solve, we work harder until we solve it. We don't have telepathy, so we learn to communicate with words and trust each other despite our isolation. We don't have natural weapons, so we build better ones. We don't live forever, so we make our short lives count. You celebrate struggle, Thurvan said in amazement. We celebrate victory, Tactical Officer Han Kwan corrected. The struggle is just what we go through to get there. As the Pioneer prepared to return to Earth, Captain Renzik stood at the airlock with Ambassador Han. Your people are remarkable, Renzik said carefully. Very different from what we expected. You expected primitives who would be grateful for your guidance, Ambassador Han said knowingly. Instead, you found equals who want to understand you before committing to anything. That must be uncomfortable. Renzik considered denying it, then realized the human was right. Yes, he admitted. It is uncomfortable. But perhaps that is good. Comfort can lead to complacency. Ambassador Han smiled. Then, maybe we'll get along after all, Captain. We'll be in touch. The humans left, returning to their fragile ship for the long journey home. As Captain Renzik watched them go, he realized that humanity had just rewritten every rule of first contact. They had shown no submission. They had offered no worship. They had treated the vast and ancient Confederation as peers, and somehow that made them more impressive than any species he had ever encountered. Medical Officer Thurvan was a being made of living crystal, transparent and beautiful, with the ability to sense biological patterns in any life form. In 300 years of medical service, Thurvan had examined thousands of different species. Some breathed methane. Some lived in extreme temperatures. Some had unusual organ systems. But all of them had followed the basic rules of advanced biological life. When the first human delegation arrived at the Confederation Medical Station for the required health screening, Thurvan expected another routine examination. Instead, the medical officer got the shock of his long life. The moment Dr. Yuna Choi stepped into the scanning field, alarms went off throughout the medical bay. "Computer, check sensors," Thurvan ordered. "There must be an error." "Sensors are functioning correctly," the computer replied. "Subject biology is causing the alarms. Warning, subject is in critical biological distress. Immediate medical intervention recommended." Thurvan looked at Dr. Choi in horror. The human woman looked healthy. She was smiling. She was walking normally. According to the scanners, she should be dying. "Are you feeling pain?" Thurvan asked urgently. Dr. Choi looked confused. "No, I feel fine. Why?" "The scanners indicate massive cellular damage. Your DNA structure has minimal error correction. Your cells are dying and regenerating constantly. Your body is operating through pure chemical reactions with no energy field stabilization. You are decomposing." "Yes," Dr. Choi said calmly. "That's called aging. All humans do it." Thurvan's crystalline form flickered with distress. "But aging should not cause this level of cellular damage. You should have regeneration fields. You should have quantum cellular repair. You should have—" The medical officer trailed off, examining the data more closely. "You have none of these things. Your body is simply wearing out, and you have no mechanism to stop it. We can slow it down with healthy living and medicine," Dr. Choi offered. "But yes, eventually we all wear out and die. Usually after about 80 years or so." 80 years? Thurvan was horrified. Most Confederation species live for 300 to 500 years at minimum. Some lived for thousands. The idea of a sentient being dying after only 8 decades was tragic beyond words. "Is this normal for your species?" Thurvan asked quietly. "Completely normal," Dr. Choi replied. She seemed amused by the medical officer's distress. "We know our time is limited. That's why we work hard and try to accomplish as much as we can while we're here." Commander Daein Park and Tactical Officer Houn Kwan entered the medical bay for their own scans. Both triggered the same alarms. Both showed the same impossible biology. Thurvan examined all 3 humans carefully, checking every system, every organ, every cellular process. What the medical officer discovered was a nightmare of biological engineering that should not be able to sustain intelligent life. Human bodies were powered by burning organic molecules in cellular structures called mitochondria. They had no backup energy systems. They had no crystalline data storage for memories. They had no quantum entanglement for neural processing. Their brains ran on electrical impulses conducted by simple chemicals across gaps between cells. It was the most primitive neural system Thurvan had ever seen in a spacefaring species. Worse, humans required constant intake of food and water to survive. They had to consume the bodies of other living things, plants or animals, and break them down in an internal chemical processing system. The waste products had to be expelled regularly. The entire process was messy, inefficient, and vulnerable to countless points of failure. "You eat other living things?" Thurvin asked in horror. "Yes," Commander Park said simply. "We're omnivores. We eat both plants and meat." "You kill and consume animal tissue?" "When necessary, yes." Thurvin had to pause and recalibrate. Most Confederation species had evolved beyond the need for physical food. They absorbed energy directly from their environment or synthesized nutrients efficiently. The idea of killing another creature and eating its flesh was something from the primitive past. Before civilization, your evolutionary ancestors were predators, Thurvin said, reading deeper into the biological data. You have forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. You have protein-digesting enzymes designed to break down muscle tissue. Your ancestors hunted and killed for survival. That's correct, Dr. Choi confirmed. We evolved from persistence hunters. We chased animals until they collapsed from exhaustion, then killed and ate them. The horror continued. Human immune systems were not passive shields. They were active war machines, constantly patrolling the body and destroying any foreign organism they encountered. Humans lived in a perpetual state of biological warfare with the microscopic life around them. Their bodies were battlegrounds where millions of tiny organisms died every day. Your immune system attacks foreign cells, Thurvin said. Aggressively. It will attack transplanted organs. It will attack beneficial microorganisms. It sees everything not recognized as self as an enemy. That's why we had to develop immunosuppressant drugs for organ transplants, Dr. Choi explained. Our bodies naturally reject anything foreign. It's kept us alive through countless diseases, but it does make medical procedures complicated. Thurvin brought in the delegation from the Confederation Medical Council. They needed to see this for themselves. When Ambassador Jin Wuhan arrived for his examination, he brought data files containing complete human medical knowledge. The council members gathered around the display screens in stunned silence as they reviewed human anatomy, human diseases, human medical history. Every page revealed new horrors. Humans could suffer from genetic disorders that their primitive DNA repair systems could not fix. They could develop cancers where their own cells turned against them. They could be infected by viruses and bacteria that hijacked their cellular machinery. They could suffer from autoimmune diseases where their defensive systems attacked their own bodies. They could experience physical and mental decline as they aged, losing memories and abilities. Your bones break easily, one council member observed. We evolved on a high-gravity world, Ambassador Han explained. Our bones are actually quite strong compared to our weight. But yes, they can break. Then they heal themselves over several weeks. Your eyes can fail. Yes, many humans need corrective lenses as they age. Your hearts can stop beating. That's usually how we die, yes. Either the heart fails or the brain stops functioning. You can drown in water, suffocate in certain atmospheres, freeze in cold temperatures, burn in heat, be crushed by pressure, be poisoned by thousands of different substances. The council member trailed off. How are you still alive? How has your species survived? Commander Park stood up, his posture straight and strong despite the biological disasters happening inside his body. We survive because we're stubborn. We adapt. We learn. We help each other. And we don't waste time wishing we were built differently. We work with what we have. Tactical Officer Houn Quan added, Our bodies might be fragile compared to yours, but they're tough by our standards. We can run for hours. We can heal from injuries. We can adapt to different climates. We can go days without food and survive. We're not as weak as you think. Dr. Choi pulled up more data. Our immune system, which horrifies you, is actually one of our greatest assets. We can survive exposure to pathogens that would kill species with more passive defense systems. Our ability to adapt quickly has let us colonize every environment on our planet, from frozen poles to burning deserts to high mountains with thin air. She showed images of humans living in extreme environments. Humans in the Arctic wearing protective clothing and thriving in temperatures that would kill most species. Humans in deserts surviving with minimal water. Humans in high mountains, their bodies adapted to low oxygen levels. Humans in tropical jungles, resisting diseases and parasites. Humans everywhere, spreading across their entire world through sheer determination. You evolved on a death world, Thurvan said quietly. A planet with extreme temperatures, dangerous weather, deadly predators, and countless diseases. You survived by becoming the deadliest thing on your world. You outhunted the predators. You outlasted the diseases. You adapted to every environment. You won. We did what we had to do, Ambassador Hahn said simply. Science Director Palmara arrived to review the findings. The gaseous being examined the human biological data with its vast intelligence, processing information that had taken the medical council days to understand. Remarkable, Palmara said finally. You are biologically impossible by our standards, yet you exist. You should have gone extinct millions of years ago, yet you dominate your planet. You have no natural advantages, yet you reach the stars. You are living proof that evolution does not follow our predicted paths. What does that mean for us? Ambassador Hahn asked. It means, Palmara replied, that the Confederation has much to learn from humanity. We have become soft, relying on technology and genetic engineering to remove all challenge from life. You have remained hard, tested constantly by your own biology and environment. When crisis comes, I suspect humanity will be far more prepared than we are. The medical examination concluded with a simple recommendation. Humans were fit to join the Confederation, despite their impossible biology. In fact, some council members suggested that humanity's. The ceremony of ascension was held on the core world of Harmonia, in the Great Plaza, where 200 species had been welcomed into the Confederation over the past 40,000 years. The ceremony followed ancient traditions. Music played from crystalline structures that resonated with peaceful harmonies. Lights danced in colors that represented unity and cooperation. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to welcome the newest member of their great civilization. Ambassador Jin Wuhan stood at the center of the plaza, wearing formal Earth diplomatic attire. Behind him stood the Earth delegation, Commander Dayan Park, Dr. Yuna Choi, Tactical Officer Han Quan, and several other humans who had made the journey. Fleet Admiral Taiwan Lee, the highest-ranking military officer in the Earth Defense Coalition, stood at attention in his dress uniform. The ceremony proceeded exactly as planned. The council elder gave the traditional speech about unity, peace, and cooperation. The human delegation was presented with the symbols of membership. Applause and celebration filled the plaza in 200 different forms. Then Fleet Admiral Taiwan Lee asked a question that made the entire assembly go silent. What are your defensive capabilities? The council elder paused, its ancient form shimmering with confusion. Defensive capabilities? Yes, Admiral Lee continued calmly. The Confederation spans thousands of worlds across this region of space. You must have military forces to protect your territory. What is your force strength? What weapon systems do you employ? What are your strategic defense plans? No species had ever asked such questions during their ascension ceremony. The Confederation representatives looked at each other in confusion and growing concern. Council Security Director Vexneth, a being covered in armored plates, stepped forward. The Confederation maintains a peacekeeping force of approximately 50,000 vessels. We use non-lethal suppression technology to resolve conflicts. We have not engaged in major military action for over 8,000 years. Admiral Lee's expression did not change, but several of the humans behind him exchanged glances. Non-lethal suppression technology, the Admiral repeated. What do you do when faced with an enemy that does not surrender? What do you do against an adversary that cannot be reasoned with? We have not encountered such situations, Vexnith replied stiffly. All conflicts can be resolved through dialogue and understanding. Until they can't, Commander Park said quietly. The ceremony continued, but the mood had changed. The Confederation representatives began to understand that humanity was not approaching membership with gratitude and wonder. They were approaching it with strategic thinking and military caution. The humans were not asking about culture and technology as gifts to receive. They were asking about threats and defenses, evaluating the Confederation as potential allies in a dangerous universe. The cultural exchange program began the following week. Cultural attach Minji Song, a young woman with expertise in Earth history and arts, arrived at the Confederation Cultural Center with data files containing thousands of years of human creative works. Literature, music, art, films, games, everything that defined human culture. The Confederation cultural experts began their review with great interest. Within hours, that interest had turned to alarm. This is a story about war, said philosopher Kalanix, reviewing a piece of human literature. Many of our stories are about war, Minji Song confirmed. Conflict is a major theme in human culture. But this story celebrates the war. It treats the soldiers as heroes. It glorifies their sacrifice. Kalanix was disturbed. This character dies in battle, and the story presents it as noble and meaningful. We honor those who give their lives for others, Minji Song explained. Sacrifice is one of our highest virtues. Our greatest heroes are often those who died protecting others. The philosopher examined more human creative works and found the pattern everywhere. Stories of warriors fighting impossible odds. Tales of last stands where everyone died but achieved victory through their sacrifice. Myths and legends where heroes gave everything, including their lives, to save others. Music that mourned the fallen while celebrating their courage. Art that depicted battle as both terrible and glorious. You have created an entire culture around conflict, Kalanix said slowly. Your entertainment simulates violence. Your games teach strategy and tactics. Your history lessons study military campaigns. Your philosophy discusses the ethics of warfare. Even your children's stories include heroes who fight monsters and villains. Our history has been shaped by conflict, Minji Song acknowledged. We've learned that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. So yes, we teach our children about courage, about standing up to threats, about protecting the weak. Is that wrong? It is unfamiliar, the philosopher admitted. Most Confederation species view such thinking as primitive, something to be evolved beyond. We teach our children about cooperation, understanding, and peaceful resolution. So do we, Minji Song said firmly. But we also teach them that peace must sometimes be defended. What do you teach your children to do when cooperation fails? When understanding is impossible? When peace is threatened by those who do not share your values? Kalanix had no answer. Meanwhile, in the Confederation Technology Center, engineer Seung-ho Nam was causing his own kind of disruption. The young human engineer had been given access to basic Confederation technology for study. He was expected to spend months or years slowly understanding the principles behind anti-gravity generators, plasma containment fields, and quantum processors. Instead, within 3 weeks, he had reverse engineered the fundamental principles and was proposing improvements. This gravity generator uses crystalline matrix alignment to manipulate space-time, Seung-ho said, pointing at the technical diagrams. But the alignment process is inefficient. If you rotated the crystal structure by 15 degrees and added a secondary harmonic field, you could increase output by 30% while reducing energy consumption. The Confederation engineers stared at him in shock. What he was suggesting was theoretically possible, but it would require innovations that had taken their species centuries to develop. This human had figured it out in less than a month. How did you understand this so quickly? One engineer asked. Seung-ho shrugged. The math is not that complex once you understand the basic principles. We've been working with electromagnetic fields and quantum mechanics for decades. Your gravity technology is just an extension of concepts we already know. You approached it from a biological, psionic direction. We approached it from a pure physics direction. Different path, same destination. What terrified the Confederation engineers was not just that Seung-ho understood their technology. It was that he was already thinking about how to weaponize it. If you modified this gravity field generator slightly, he mused. Looking at another diagram, you could create a focused gravity well that would crush any object caught in it. Or if you reverse the polarity here, you could create a gravity pulse that would tear ships apart at the molecular level. Why would you want to do that? The lead engineer asked in horror. I don't want to do it, Seung-ho clarified. I'm just thinking about what's possible. It's important to understand potential threats so you can defend against them. The most disturbing revelation came from the Luminar Collective, the oldest and wisest beings in the Confederation. The Luminars existed as pure consciousness. Beings of thought that had transcended physical form 600,000 years ago. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They understood intelligence in all its forms. They requested permission to study human consciousness. And Ambassador Han agreed. 3 Luminar representatives entered the minds of willing human subjects, attempting to understand how a species without telepathy could achieve sentience and civilization. They expected to find primitive, isolated consciousness, each human alone in their own mind, struggling to communicate and understand each other. What they found was far more complex and far more disturbing. Human minds were indeed isolated, locked inside physical brains with no psionic connection to each other. But rather than making them weak, this isolation had made them incredibly resilient. Each human mind was complete unto itself, capable of independent thought, independent decision-making, and independent survival. They did not need group consensus. They did not need telepathic validation. They could act alone. More disturbing was what the Luminars found in the deep structures of human consciousness. Fear. Constant, ever-present fear of death, failure, insignificance, and the unknown. Every human carried this burden, a weight that should have crushed their minds and made them incapable of rational thought. But humans did not let their fear control them. They acknowledged it, accepted it, and used it. Fear became motivation. Fear became caution. Fear became the drive to prepare, to plan, to build defenses. Humans were afraid of everything, and that fear made them unstoppable. The Luminar representative reported its findings to the Council in a chamber filled with the galaxy's greatest minds. They are psychologically primitive, the Luminar said. They experience emotions that we evolved beyond millions of years ago. They feel fear, anger, jealousy, grief. These emotions should paralyze them. Instead, they harness these emotions and channel them into action. Can they be reason? The warning came from the outer rim, from a monitoring station on the edge of Confederation space. At first, it seemed like a sensor error. Then 3 colonies went silent within 6 hours. By the time the Confederation Council convened an emergency session, 5 worlds were dark and lifeless. The threat had a name, though speaking it caused fear across the galaxy. The Devourers. A mechanical hive mind from dark space, from the empty regions between galaxies where nothing should exist. They had appeared once before, 12,000 years ago, and nearly destroyed the Confederation before mysteriously withdrawing. Now they had returned. The Devourers were unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. They were not biological, so telepathic weapons had no effect. They were not truly artificial intelligence, so logic attacks failed. They simply consumed. They took planets apart at the molecular level, harvesting every atom of matter to build more of themselves. They grew exponentially, and they adapted to every weapon used against them within hours. The Confederation military mobilized its peacekeeping fleet. 50,000 vessels equipped with non-lethal suppression technology, energy dampeners, and harmony generators designed to calm aggressive species. They had been sufficient to maintain peace for 8,000 years. They were destroyed in the first engagement. In less than 4 hours, the Devourer swarm overwhelmed the Confederation fleet through sheer numbers and adaptability. Energy weapons were absorbed and converted to power their systems. Gravity weapons were analyzed and countered. Suppression fields were ignored. The few ships that escaped brought back horrifying news. The Devourers were learning, growing, and accelerating toward the core worlds. The Confederation Council met in emergency session. Panic filled the chamber. Some representatives called for evacuation to alternate dimensions. Others suggested negotiating surrender terms. A few proposed activating ancient weapon systems that had been banned for millennia as too dangerous. Ambassador Jinmu Han stood up from the human delegation seats. "Give us authorization to deploy the Earth Defense Fleet," he said calmly. The council chamber went silent. Council Elder turned toward the human ambassador with what might have been hope or might have been desperation. "The human military?" The Elder asked. "You believe your forces can succeed where ours failed?" "We don't believe," Fleet Admiral Taiwan Lee said, standing beside the ambassador. "We know. This is what we were built for. This is what we do." The authorization was granted. The Earth Defense Coalition deployed 200 warships from Sol System and another 300 from human colonies, scattered across their small section of space. 500 human military vessels jumped to faster-than-light travel and headed toward the Devourer threat. Captain Renzik, now serving as a liaison officer with the human fleet, watched in horror as the human warships appeared on his sensors. They were nightmares made real. No harmony generators. No beauty in their design. Just armor, weapons, and engines. The vessels looked like what they were: tools of war, built by a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. The indomitable Commander Dane Park's flagship was a massive vessel bristling with weapon systems. Nuclear missile batteries, kinetic bombardment rails, plasma cannons, electromagnetic pulse generators, chemical explosive warheads, laser arrays, and weapons Renzik did not recognize. Things the humans had built specifically for this battle after studying the Devourer attacks. "This is Fleet Admiral Taiwan Lee to all ships." The Admiral's voice came over the communications network. "We are facing an adaptive enemy. Standard doctrine applies. First wave establishes pattern. Second wave breaks pattern. Third wave exploits confusion. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember that every second we buy is another second for the Confederation to evacuate civilians. Make those seconds count." The human fleet formed up in a pattern that made no sense to Confederation tactical observers. Ships were scattered seemingly at random, with no defensive formations, no harmony fields linking them together. It looked like chaos. It was actually the most sophisticated military formation Renzik had ever seen. Each ship had independent command authority. Each captain could adapt to changing circumstances without waiting for orders. The humans were not operating as a unified fleet. They were operating as 500 independent hunters. each capable of making their own decisions. The Devourers emerged from their dimensional tunnel near Terminus Station, a major Confederation trade hub. Millions of mechanical entities, each the size of a small fighter, swarming together with perfect coordination. They had learned from consuming the Confederation fleet. They knew how to counter energy weapons. They knew how to disrupt gravity fields. They were ready for traditional warfare. They were not ready for humanity. The human fleet opened fire with nuclear weapons first. Primitive, old-fashioned fission and fusion warheads that released massive amounts of energy through simple atomic chain reactions. The Devourers adapted quickly, developing energy absorption fields. Perfect. That was exactly what the humans wanted them to do. The second wave hit with kinetic weapons. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible velocities, carrying no energy signature that could be absorbed. Just mass and momentum. The Devourers' energy absorption fields were useless against chunks of metal traveling at relativistic speeds. Thousands of Devourer units shattered under the bombardment. Before the Devourers could adapt, the third wave deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons, disabling their sensor systems. The fourth wave used chemical explosives that created shrapnel clouds, destroying multiple units with each detonation. The fifth wave deployed something the Devourers had never encountered: biological weapons modified by Dr. Yuna Choi's research teams. The virus was not really alive, but it acted like it was. It infected Devourer computational systems, corrupting their code and spreading through their network connections. The Devourers tried to adapt, but the virus mutated faster than they could develop countermeasures. Human programmers had designed it to evolve, to change, to survive just like biological life. The Devourers began to falter. Their perfect coordination broke down as infected units sent false commands. Their adaptation became confused as they tried to counter weapons that kept changing. And through it all, human ships kept moving, kept attacking, kept adapting their own tactics faster than the Devourers could learn. "They're fighting like you predicted," Renzik said to Commander Park in amazement. "Random attacks, constant changes, no pattern recognition possible." "We're not random," Park replied calmly. "We're unpredictable." "That's different. Every captain in this fleet has trained for years to think independently, to assess situations, to make decisions without waiting for orders. The Devourers can learn from patterns. They can't learn from chaos that has no pattern." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships took terrible damage. The Devourers were relentless, learning and adapting even as they died. But the humans learned faster. They shared information across their fleet in real time, each ship's experience adding to the collective knowledge, but each ship remaining independent in action. When conventional weapons proved insufficient, Commander Park made a decision that shocked every Confederation observer. He ordered ramming maneuvers. "All ships with critical damage, plot collision courses," Park commanded. "If you're going down anyway, make it count." 12 human vessels, their armor breached and systems failing, accelerated to maximum speed and crashed directly into Devourer concentrations. The impacts released more energy than nuclear weapons, scattering Devourer units and creating openings for other human ships to exploit. The crews of those 12 ships knew they were going to die. They went anyway, because that was what humans did. Engineer Sung-Ho Nam's hybrid technology teams deployed their secret weapon, devices that combined human electromagnetic pulse technology with Confederation gravity well generators. The result was a weapon that created interference patterns in space-time itself, disrupting the Devourer's quantum entanglement communication. Cut off from each other, unable to share adaptations, the Devourers became vulnerable. Tactical Officer Hound Quan led boarding parties onto disabled Devourer ships. They fought in conditions that no Confederation soldier had experienced in thousands of years. Zero gravity, hard vacuum, radiation-soaked compartments, all while wearing pressure suits that were barely adequate. They planted explosives, disrupted power systems, and captured Devour components for study. Dr. Yuna Choi's teams analyzed the captured components and developed new biological attacks, viruses that specifically targeted Devour materials. The attacks were not elegant. They were brutal, efficient, and devastatingly effective. The Devourers broke. For the first time in recorded history, the mechanical swarm retreated, falling back through their dimensional tunnel and abandoning their assault. The human fleet had done what no Confederation military force had ever accomplished. They had stopped the DEVOURERS. The cost was terrible. 47 human ships destroyed, 12,000 personnel dead, another 20,000 injured. The surviving human vessels were heavily damaged, barely able to return to base. The memorial service was held on Harmonia, broadcast across the entire Confederation. Fleet Admiral Taiwan Lee stood before the assembled representatives.